La STM vous souhaite la bienvenue à bord.
This is your stop. In Transit with Elias Makos, CJAD 800.
All right, say it with me, people. Chant it with me, whether you're in your car or sitting at your home office. High-speed rail. High-speed rail. Don't we deserve in this country what they have in a lot of other places? High-speed rail. Imagine if we could just go downtown to downtown, Montreal to Toronto in record time. Boy, it would be nice. Recent survey shows strong public support for high-speed trains that can link, Montreal to Toronto, Quebec City to Windsor, that corridor, high-speed rail that we see in so many other countries. Let's find out what the current state of the battle is to get high-speed rail in the country. I know they are talking about it at the federal level. We go to Ian Hodkinson, Business Development Director, Transit Systems at Alstom Group. Ian, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks for having me, Elias.
I imagine, and it's great to talk to you. Trains are your thing, I imagine. So,
exactly.
Why don't you tell me what is the latest here? Because I know Ottawa says, "Hey, a plan is coming," and they were talking about high frequency rail, which I thought was just trying to to convince us we were getting something nicer than it really is. Tell us what the latest is. What you're hearing on that front.
Well, Elias, it's good news. I actually think I can say now we're closer than we've ever been in Canada to the prospect of high speed in the Quebec Toronto corridor. Currently, the status is the federal government is going through a procurement process to find a private partner that will collaborate with the government to develop the rail project in the corridor. And the teams have been asked to come up with two solutions. One that would be the high-frequency solution you mentioned, kind of 200 kilometers per hour, and another solution which would go faster than 200 kilometers per hour. So those teams actually submitted their proposals a couple of months ago, and we're now waiting as the government evaluates them, and we're hoping for an announcement a little bit later this fall about who the winning team will be and hopefully a little bit of insight into what the solution could be.
So, Alstom, did you submit a proposal?
Yeah, so that's one of the interesting things. So technology firms like ourselves, we're not asked to be part of the consortium. The groups are formed of prominent operators of trains, so people like train operators in Europe and things like that, as well as development funds and as well as engineering firms. But the actual technology firms, we weren't invited yet. So we're ready and waiting.
You're ready and waiting. Now, from your perspective, what would be the best option? And for our listeners, Montreal to Toronto, what would be the best option for this country? High frequency, high speed, kilometers, transit times, all of that. What do you think is the perfect scenario for us?
For sure. So it's interesting. The good thing is the government actually set out some clear objectives as a project. And the number one objective was what we call modal shift. That's to convince people to make the shift, to leave the car at home and take the train. And from our experience, because we actually build TGVs in Europe and places like that, we've discovered the number one convinces people to take the train is can you get that trip time shorter? All of us have experienced. Can you imagine, as you said in the intro, imagine a trip that would only take 3 hours to get Montreal to Toronto, an hour Montreal to Ottawa, something along those order of magnitude. If you can get to that time, people will make the shift. So based on that, I think the best thing for all this is got to be a project that at least includes some aspects of high speed. Let's get that trip time down to a point where we can actually make a reasonable trip to Toronto as opposed to the 6-hour drive on the 401.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me. The initial proposals that we're hearing about when the government was still on high frequency, wink, wink rail, and they were saying, it'll bring it down to 4 hours, 15 minutes. And, the best case scenario right now is 4 hours, 53 minutes if everything goes right. Often it does not. But I said 4 hours and 15 minutes. How that was not a deal. That was a deal breaker for me. It was too long. So, as someone that would love to do that, Montreal to Toronto, downtown to downtown, to me, it's got to be 3 hours or less if you want to really change people's habits. What do you think is stopping Canada from doing what so many other countries have done before us? Is it pressure from the airline industry lobbying there? What do you think has been the hang up in this country?
I think it's a variety of factors. The interesting thing is a little anecdote. We've studied it since the 80s. Quick parenthesis, my grandfather actually worked for Bombardier in the 80s and participated in the study in sort of 1981. So it's been 40 years we've been looking at it.
Wow.
I think it's a combination of factors. I think the thing that I'm reassured with right now is between the openness and the proposals that were submitted to include an option that's faster than 200 kilometers per hour, and also, a lot of the expressions, the public statements we're seeing from Martin Humblot, who's the new CEO of Via HFR, the new Crown Corporation that's going to be the public partner for this, and even Minister Rodriguez, in support of shorter times that you and I are both talking about. It really gives me hope that we can look towards an option that will give us that 3 hours we've been looking for.
We're with Ian Hodkinson from Alstom, and we're talking about high-speed rail in that Quebec-Toronto corridor. So, what are the big challenges here? If you're submitting a proposal, you want to get it to the 3 hours, but there's construction issues, all types of things that happen. What are the big hurdles, challenges to getting us to that promised 3 hour transit time land?
Well, I think one of the interesting challenges that all the teams are going to face is actually something that we probably don't think of often, but it's actually, it's something that all the commuters in Montreal understand. It's getting in and out of the city. And I think it's true from all of the cities, is that as our cities have been growing and growing tremendously, and actually if you look at the numbers, La Presse article referred to it, we're looking at even more growth, particularly in Toronto over the next 10, 15 years. It's going to be huge. So just simply the real estate of getting into Toronto and in and out of Montreal and into Quebec City, Ottawa, is challenging. And so I think that's one of the number one challenges those teams are going to face. Aside from that, I think it's things like it's going to be, of course, finding alignments as well in real estate in between the cities and finding stretches where they can get that speed up to the potentially the 300 kilometers per hour. To bring those trip times down to really get to the 3 hour mark that we're looking for.
And what about cost, Ian? I keep hearing people saying, well, the government says it would cost this much for high-speed rail in this country. And then people do the comparisons with similar systems in Europe, in Japan. And to me, sometimes the numbers don't make any sense, how expensive it will be in this country. What do you say on cost? Can we get the cost to a reasonable level?
Well, the interesting thing there. One is, I can't say an absolute number. I'm not in a position because we're really waiting for these teams to come up with what their solution is going to be. And so the costs are actually going to vary for the different solutions that the different teams are going for. So hard to say in absolutes. But one of the things that really costs the most in building a rail system is just separating the tracks from surrounding traffic. So avoiding things like level crossings and stuff like that. So once you're doing that separation, once you're building those bridges and stuff so you're crossing the roads as opposed to going through a level crossing, you've sunk a lot of the money anyhow. So the incremental cost to go from sort of a 200 kilometer per hour system to a 300 kilometer per hour system, if you're segregating it like that, isn't that much. Uh-huh. So I'm really hoping that there shouldn't be a huge eye-popping surprise versus a dedicated 200 kilometer per hour system and a higher 300 kilometer per hour system.
Ian, thanks for coming on this morning. Let's touch base again when we find out further plans and what happens here. I can just tell you from our text line as well, and every discussion I've had, and the survey showed it, 92%. Everyone's in favor of this, like this. Like, I don't think 92% of Canadians are in favor of pepperoni on pizza. So this number is incredible. Come back, okay?
Will do. As I like to joke, it sounds like Canadians are on board with high speed, and that's fantastic.
Absolutely. Okay, and be well. Thanks so much. Ian Hodkinson, Business Development Director, Transit Systems at Alstom Group.